Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I get to ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. This episode has been one that I've been very excited to do ever since the advent of the podcast. My guest this week is a former Top Gun instructor. Yes, a real live Top Gun pilot. He flew F-14 Tomcats for the U.S. Navy and goes by call sign Pager. My guest this week, retired Commander Tom Pager Page. Tom, thanks for joining me. I'm very excited.
Hey, Jake. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So as is the format of the show, we're going to start with spinning the wheel of stupid questions. This is just a reminder that asking questions is good. Even if they're stupid, if you point them at the right people, you can get some pretty good answers. So we'll jump into that.
Spin that wheel of stupid questions.
All right, time to spin the wheel of stupid questions. I'm going to see what we get today. This question's been popping up with increasing frequency, but you are going to be the perfect person to answer this. Your experience up in the skies. Do you believe in aliens? What's the UAP situation? Have you seen anything that you can't explain?
I've seen some things that we've eventually figured out what was happening. But at the time, it seemed very odd. I've seen since retiring from the Navy, famous F-18 intercepting what they call Tic Tacs. Very
Commander
small.
Fravor, is that the one?
Yes, exactly. And that guy was a Top Gun graduate, skipper of a fighter squadron, credibility plus. So to have him be talking about things like that, of course, I sit there and go, I totally what he saw. Whether you can explain it or not, who knows? So yeah, I definitely believe in. We're not the smartest thing out there in the universe.
That might be the case. Yeah. And as a commercial pilot now, what do you make of this drone stuff on the East Coast?
Wow. Well, first of all, I just retired 2 months ago. So
there you go. Awesome.
I am no longer, thank you. Thanks. 32 years flew by like that. But for sure, there's some things, no doubt that the government knows probably a little bit more than they're letting on.
Yeah.
The drones, unfortunately and fortunately, but kind of a mixed bag, is going to be in our future. Mm-hmm. Utilization for the good. There's also going to be some people that are going to utilize it for not so good. So that's something that is a little bit concerning moving forward. That you can put a weapon on a very small little drone, and next thing you know, you got a bunch of havoc happening. So
absolutely, yeah,
that's a little concerning.
For sure, yeah. So let's get into your story.
Okay.
So being a fighter pilot, was this a childhood dream? Was this, or how did you fall into it?
Pretty fortunate and lucky. I saw the Blue Angels fly, and I was like, you know what? That looks pretty cool to me. And that kind of set me on my path as a 12, 13-year-old. And I also wanted to be a pro football player.
Oh, wow.
In the mind of a 12-year-old. So one day my dad was cutting our hair to save some money, and the Army-Navy game came on. And he goes, hey, Tom, those Blue Angels you saw a couple years ago? He goes, I think you have to go to the Naval Academy in order to become one of those guys. Plus, you can play football there. So I took that bait that he threw out there and ended up going to the Naval Academy. Was a little bit too small to play football, so I transitioned to lacrosse and ended up playing there for 4 years, and then went to flight school right after graduating, and the rest is.
So when you go to flight school, what's like, obviously there's a full cache of different options of things to fly in the Navy. Sure. How do you get selected or how does that process work?
So when you go down to flight school, you fly a primary prop airplane. I flew a T-28. That's how old I am, and those planes are long gone. After you finish your basic primary training, depending on how you did, select jets, props, or helicopters. So I had done pretty well, so I was able to get jet grades and selected the jet pipeline. So then I went to NAS Kingsville down in Texas and flew the T2 and the A4 basic jet and then the advanced jet. And once you get done with that training, which was around a year, go to the aircraft carrier and qualify on landing on the carrier, go through all the dogfighting phase and the aerobatic phase. Once you get your wings, then they take everybody and again, ranking wise, that you get F-14s, F-18, A6s, S3s. You have your dream sheet. And I was actually selected to be an instructor right after getting my wings. I did that for a year and a half.
Wow. So how long of a process is that, like to go from like getting in to then actually being, flying a F-14?
So normally it's probably a year and a half to 2 years from start to getting your wings. And when you get orders, you show up to your squadron, and the F-14 training squadron was around a year. So literally 3 years from starting to being qualified, fully operational in an F-14.
So what years were this, for sake of reference?
I got my wings in March of '85, and I showed up to Miramar right after the movie Top Gun was filmed, probably a year later.
I was just going to say it was '86. That was the year of the movie. So you're really right on top of it.
Oh my gosh. It was talk about luck and timing being, a big part of one's life. You show up to Miramar as an F-14 guy right after Top Gun became such a hit, and it was quite a time.
At that period of time, what was flight simulation like? Were they putting you in like flight simulators before you were actually taking these jets like up in the sky, or what was that like?
Absolutely. There was no DCS, no desktop flying. Simulator was a building that had these big simulations built on hydraulic pulleys, so it actually moved, and then there were some that were just basically video based, that you got to practice your emergency procedures. They would, you'd get in there and they'd have a whole curriculum of, you take it off from the carrier and you lose your motor. You lose one of the jets. One of the motors honks out. So you have to go through your emergency procedure, how to fly it away safely and divert or bring it back to the ship, depending on the scenario. So we definitely had simulation prior to getting in the jet. And then every year we would go through a refresher course to go through our emergency procedure training. And there was a saying that the Navy kind of lived by: train like you fight, fight like you train. So I can't say enough about the amount of training that we did. It really, practice makes perfect. And, years later, when I had that night, the Barricade, literally just snapped back to where training. I mean, it's all up here, and you don't really know how you're going to react until stuff hits the fan, and then suddenly you are right back into how you were trained. So if you're not trained very well, it might not go as well as those of us that took it seriously, and really it got force fed to.
So as you kind of go through this pipeline and you go from, obviously less powerful aircraft as you climb the ladder, are the leaps between these aircrafts like pretty substantial from the pilot seat, or by the time you get to the F-14, is it like, whoa, this is like nothing I've ever been in before from a terms of power?
A little bit of both. The basic jet, the T2, it's a very forgiving airplane. You can do aerobatics and you can get it into a spin, let go, and it's going to basically fly itself out. And you just It's very basic. The advanced jet, the A4, a little bit more nimble, a little bit more less forgiving, but an advancement in power and in maneuverability. Then you take the next leap to the Tomcat and go from one engine, subsonic, no afterburner, now two engines, afterburners, supersonic, Mach 2 plus. It's a large leap. But they train you well and get you ready for it, and you learn from your mistakes, and you when you do make a mistake, you're taught, hey, don't do that again, and this is what you can take from it. And something that, in order to be very good at what you're doing as a fighter pilot, you have to push those edges of the envelope to the point where if you're going to fly the airplane to its limits, you have to almost sometimes tiptoe across that line so that you know where the limit is. Mm-hmm. Once you get beyond that limit and let's say you lose control of the airplane, okay, I know how far I need to go. And if I take it right to the limit, then I should be good to go.
One thing I've always wondered when you watch, especially aerobatics, like the Blue Angels, what does turbulence feel like in a plane like that? Like in terms of obviously most of us are familiar with a commercial jet, what that kind of feels like, even in rough air. But when you see these planes that are able to be, a foot from each other, how on earth are they able to do that in a world where you could have unexpected rough air at any point?
Sure. Jets, fighters can cut through turbulence a little bit better just because of their size and the speed that they're going through turbulence. The Blues do it very well because they practice 3 times a day, every day in the off season, and they are very good. And they are one of the centers of excellence in the Navy, along with Top Gun. That there is no margin for error. Work as a team, practice until you have it perfect, and you don't stop until you reach that level. You are always trying to attain perfection. Rarely do you ever get there, but you're always working for it. In a bigger aircraft, the Airbus or the Boeing, 75, 76 that I used to fly, I would tell the passengers, it's like there are potholes in the sky that you don't see, but you hit a pothole, no big deal. Your wheels don't fall off. Mm-hmm. Keep going. Just like just like driving on a rough road, you're going to hit some turbulence. It's going to go away. It's not a big deal.
So would you just say categorically, those jets just don't really shake like that, or don't have the effect from the turbulence, or is it not that simple?
Well, it's not that simple. They are affected. Especially the Blues in their diamond formation, they're all kind of, if you're hitting a pocket of unstable air, you're probably all moving, because the pockets are not tiny. They're large. So all jets are probably getting affected the same way, but due to the, reaction time and these pilots being so locked into being 18 inches wingtip to canopy, they're working really hard. I mean, if you ever watch the video inside the cockpit, the stick and the throttles are constantly moving and it makes it look so effortless, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
That's one thing that I've wondered, is the sensitivity of these controls. Because if you're traveling at 1,400 miles an hour, right, which is Mach 2, right, if you adjust this thing by a degree or two, you got to be having massive altitude changes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But big thing about flying is you trim the airplane. There's these trim tabs that you can get it so where your hands off, and you're just basically flying with fingertips. You're not sitting there squeezing the jet. When the old saying goes, when we're first starting out, you're trying to fly formation. A lot of times, you're doing this, and it looks like the other plane is doing that. And I'll never forget when I was a young midshipman, I was in the back seat and flying the airplane, and I'm like, "Sir, why is that airplane porpoising up and down?" And the guy goes, let go of the stick. And I let go of the stick and rock solid.
Huh.
And it's called pilot induced oscillation, PIO. So it's me as a young pilot, never having done this. I'm squeezing the black out of the color of the stick.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm so pumped up and so excited. But because of that, I'm trying to, react to the plane looking like it's going up, and I'm overreacting. So I'm doing larger inputs than is needed. So the old seasoned pilot is like, hey, let go. See, it's not the airplane, it's you. You're putting that in. So just relax, fly it with your fingertips, and you'll make it more stable.
And so then more or less the plane will hold its altitude, and you're just focusing on, location more so than,
Pretty much. Yeah. You're also flying with the throttle. So if as you see yourself starting to back off a little bit, you're putting a little bit of throttle input in to kind of catch up, but then you also have to recorrect. So there's literally a constant, not constant, but very much you are always putting inputs in both the stick and the throttle in order to fly good formation.
So you talked about it a little bit earlier, talking about once you eventually progress to doing carrier landings. What's that process look like? Are you doing like simulated carrier landings on land first, and then you progress to the ship, or?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have at Miramar, we had a inboard runway that had a carrier box painted on the surface of the runway, and right next to that box was the LSO, the landing signal officer, his little platform there. And the LSOs are the guys that during carrier operations, they are helping you if you need it with little calls about your lineup, or you need a little bit of power, or the deck is moving up or down. They're giving you some good information and helping you out, because landing on a carrier is pretty difficult. So we would practice doing that. You do 10 landings on a dedicated there'd be 6 airplanes in the pattern, and you'd get 10 practice landings. And we would do that for my F-14 training. We did that 20 to 25 times. So you're getting a lot of landings, daytime and nighttime, prior to going out to the ship for the first time to actually try it.
In terms of the actual ship, this might be a question that's unanswerable from someone that doesn't know how to fly a plane, but I've always been puzzled by how a plane can land on a moving object as it rises and falls in the sea. How is it possible to coordinate that? Is it a timing thing? Is it how does it even work? I can't even wrap my brain around it.
Yeah, first of all, there's what they call the Fresnel lens system on the aircraft carrier that is basically a light beam that gives you the proper glide slope that you want to be flying your airplane to actually land on the carrier in the landing area. And the reference that you get from that beam are what they call datums that show you, they're basically almost like arrows, lights, a row of lights that point to the middle of this vertical light, different segments of light. When you are right on glide path, the light that you're seeing on this vertical column of lights is right in the middle. Basically, it's pointing, these lights here are showing you that's where you want to be. If you get a little bit high, the light actually moves a little bit higher. So you can actually, as soon as you roll into the groove and you roll wings level, you look out and you look at the lights, you can see, oh, I'm right on glide path, or I'm high, or I'm low, and you don't want to be low. And as you there's one ball that's still yellow, but then once it starts to go red, that's danger. You don't want to, that means you're going very low, and you want to correct that with some power and, a little bit of backstick. So it gives you a reference as to what you want to fly visually. And then the saying is meatball lineup angle of attack. So the meatball is the light system that we're looking at. Meatball lineup is on center line, and that's critically important, especially with an F-14 being such a large wingspan aircraft. You want to land on center line. If you're off 5-10 feet, your wingtip might be clipping airplanes that are parked on the carrier flight deck, because space is a premium.
Mm-hmm.
And then angle of attack is your aircraft's angle relative to the horizon and the relative wind. So it's how your angle is, and we have a little light system in the airplane that tells us if we're fast, meaning lower angle, or if we're slow, meaning cocked up. So meatball lineup, angle of attack, those three things constantly being scanned, and the whole time you're coming in. And then, as you mentioned, the deck moving, that's where the LSOs come in. They will tell you when the deck is up or when the deck is down, not chase it. You believe the glide slope that you're on, and they always have the power of the pickle. The pickle is the wave off lights. And if you get out of sync with the deck, you're coming in on your glide path and the deck is down. All of a sudden it starts to come up, and it translates with you having maybe taken some power off, and now you're coming down quicker. The LSOs see that before you as a pilot sees that, and they mash the wave off lights, which means go to full power, fly the airplane away from the deck, and you'll just try it again.
What type of training does that LSO position have? Like, are they some sort of pilots or like?
Yeah, they're all pilots. They're doing this. This is a collateral job that they do, and they go through LSO school, and they go through training. When we're practicing on the carrier painted runway at Miramar, LSOs are out there training younger LSOs what to look for. Here's what the angle looks like. Just go through the training that they've learned in order to help facilitate what we're doing.
Okay, so this brings me to the story. I want to hear about your kind of tenuous landing in, what year was that would have been?
That was May of '89. It was my second cruise. We're out in the Indian Ocean, and we're just flying at night to get requalified, because every 6 or 7 days you need a night landing to stay qualified.
Wow.
So it had been 6 or 7 days, and we're just going to take off and go through a normal air intercept mission to let the backseaters work the radars. And then after flying that, we're going to come back and do our night trap. And this particular day we took off. The weather was really bad. And once we got airborne, the ship decided, it's time to come back because the weather is starting to go down a bit and starting to worsen. So turned back around to the ship and had to dump 6,000 to 7,000 pounds of gas because you have a max trap weight. Mm-hmm. And when you take off with a full bag of gas in an F-14, you're going to be too heavy to come back and land. So kind of bittersweet, gas is flight time, which is life, when you're out in the middle of the Indian Ocean and there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah. My goodness.
But you have to come back. Yeah. So we dumped our gas, came back, and it was pretty dicey. The first pass or so, I didn't have a very good pass because of the winds were out of limits. And, the ship was dealing with, being surrounded by microbursts and bad weather, lightning, whatnot. So anyway, had a bolter on my first pass, which is the tail hook missed the wires. So you basically just go full power and go around, basically a touch and go. And we went into what they call low holding. They decided to just kind of put us in a holding pattern while they were getting a plan together, try to figure out how we're going to get all these airplanes that we have airborne safely either on deck or 500 to 600 miles away to a divert field. So they decided to proactively launch some A6 maxi tankers, basically flying fuel stations and have some F-14s join on them and give them gas via the refueling probe and take them 500-600 miles away to a divert field. So while they're doing that, meanwhile, we're in low holding, just kind of biding our time, waiting to.
How much time are you thinking? How much? What's the timeline on that operation? Like, is this minutes or? Oh
no, this took. We were probably in low holding for 45 minutes or so.
Oh,
yeah, and we're looking at our tapes getting lower and lower, and that's a little disconcerting, knowing that there's not a lot of options out here, and but they finally came up with a plan. There was an S3 that had a anchor pod on it. He came up and said, "Hey, we have 1,000 pounds to give somebody." So we were able to coordinate with him, and we joined up on him. And again, if you could imagine, in and out of clouds, lightning, turbulence, we get him on radar, and we join on him, and tanked and got that 1,000 pounds with him. It was very difficult flying conditions. But things were starting to work out, because right around the time we finished getting his gas, an A6 that had been launched to specifically give us and another airplane gas was joining on us. So it was like, okay, this is great. We don't have to go looking for him. He's already joined up. So once we got done with the S3, he went his way. We went ahead and joined on the A6 and had him bring his basket out, and we plugged onto him. And he said, "Hey, we don't show you in the basket, the indicator in their cockpit that shows that there's a connection so the gas can flow." So it's like, no, we're in the basket. So we unhooked and plugged him again. He goes, "No, we don't show you in the basket." So third time, kind of hit it hard just to make sure that we got a good seat. And he comes back up and goes, "No, we're a sour tanker," which is not words you want to hear. He's not going to be able to pass the gas that he has in his tanks. So anyway, right around then is we're back down to 2,000 pounds of gas, which is pretty low for an F-14 at night. And it turns out while we were tanking, the A6 tanker was maneuvering between these big cells of weather just to try to keep it smooth air for us in the basket. It's pretty tough to stay there. So once we unhooked with him, it turns out the carrier is 25, 30 miles behind us. We have to now come turn around, and now there's this big cell we have to get around. We can't go through it because of the convective weather. What
is like casual cruising speed at doing these kind of things?
You're kind of in a max conserve, probably 240, 250 knots. So it's just basically, max conserve. You're trying to stay airborne and not burn as little amount of gas as possible.
Yeah.
So just a clean configuration, 220 to 2.
Okay.
So right around that time, the commander of the air group, our CAG, comes up on the horn and goes, "Hey, we're gonna have to barricade you," which I was totally surprised with. I'd never even considered a barricade, and initially I was questioning that, but he just said, "Hey, you hit the number. There's a standard operating procedures that the carrier runs with that says when a fighter hits this fuel level and there's situations that are going to make it difficult to come back, have to barricade him." So we hit that number, and so they started briefing us on the procedures of what a barricade is. And we had heard about a barricade, but had never thought about it. And so the big thing with taking a barricade is that you don't want to take your own wave off, because if you do, there's a chance that, number one, you're not going to have enough fuel to come back around and do it again. And number two, there was that took his own wave off. His tail hook actually caught Barricade as he was leaving, and it basically slammed him onto the deck and then off and killed everybody on board. So
Oh no.
lessons learned, they said, don't take your own wave off. And when you touch down, instead of going to full power like you always do, you're going to go to idle. So we got briefed on all that. And so we're now coming in, getting vectored into land. The controllers are talking to us, and they ask us to do a 360, do basically a 360-degree turn to give the guys on deck a little bit of time to set the barricade up. So we did a 360. Now, we're still burning through our gas and our tapes are getting lower. And now we're dirtied up, our gear's down, our flaps down, our tail hook is down, getting in closer. And they go, hey, Pedro, why don't you give us one more 360? And it's like, okay, why? I mean, we said, okay, we'll do it. But I looked down at the tapes, and we're below 1,000 pounds of gas. And the F-14 has a potential gauge error of 300 to 400 pounds per side. Oh, no. So now we're showing 900 pounds. And so it's like we're literally on fumes potentially. So my mask, whatever reason, when taking off, the LOX bottle, liquid oxygen, had disconnected. So my mask has been down the entire flight. So I lean over and I basically say, hey, you got to take us now, because we're running out of options. Mm-hmm. So they hear the urgency. I hadn't talked the entire flight because my backseater Ricky was doing all the talking, and he did a great job that night. I think when they heard my voice come up and they said, okay, this is some inflection, there's no messing around. We gotta continue his turn. And so we ended up turning back and landing with 600 pounds of gas. Pretty, less than 600 pounds of gas, to the point where our maintenance officer later told us that we had 90 seconds of flying time.
Oh, wow.
They drained the remaining fuel to see how much we had. We had 90 seconds. So that was our last attempt to.
So as you come down into that barricade, I would imagine it's a pretty rough landing, right? Are you almost expecting there to be a catastrophe, or is it like, all right, we're going to hit this thing, it's going to be a little bit rough, but we'll be just fine? Or is it like maybe we're going to blow up, maybe we're not, who knows what's going to happen?
No, it's going to be a normal approach. Mm-hmm. And when you land, we had our hook down. They were targeting the first wire. Normally they target the third wire with the glide slope. That's the optimum wire you want. But on this one, because of where the barricade was located on the deck, they wanted us to land short and grab the first wire with our hook. Mm-hmm. So they adjusted the glide path accordingly. With LSOs can manually show you the glide path that they want. So they targeted the one wire, which is the one I actually caught. So when we actually landed and I went to idle, we were decelerating prior to actually being engulfed in the barricade.
Okay.
It was a little bit of a, it's nighttime, it's raining, weather's bad, and I didn't see the barricade until right as it engulfed our airplane. Mm-hmm. That was a little, I'd never seen that before, and it kind of reacted a little bit to it. Mm-hmm. But never thought it was going to be a crash or anything like that.
Wow. What a story. Holy cow. Wow. So then how much longer, so that is, you said 89. So then How many more years beyond that were you flying F-14s?
I ended up flying the rest of cruise. And then as soon as I got done with that cruise, I got selected to go to Top Gun as an instructor. And Top Gun a year later got F-14s as part of the staff. So I was out of Tomcats for a year, and then a year later was back flying F-14s along with the F-16. And so pretty fortunate to be qualified in 3 airplanes while at Top Gun.
Okay, so that brings me to my thing. I don't want to keep you all day, but I cannot let you go without asking all of my nerdy Top Gun movie questions.
Sure.
First thing, I got to learn about the call sign thing, right? Obviously, I can imagine where you got pager based on your last name.
Sure.
I think that from what I know of the assignment of call signs, I think you probably got pretty lucky, right? Giving it the name.
I earned a few other ones that just never stuck, but yeah.
What does that process look like? And do you have any of your favorites over the years that you saw that kind of give you a giggle?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, the process is, the fighter squadrons are basically, as our wives would say, we're all just big kids.
Yeah.
We like to have fun. We work hard. We play hard. Mm-hmm. And call signs are one of the, at least in the old Navy days, you'd get a call sign a lot of times for something that you did that was stupid. Like a guy sets his brakes and gets shot off the carrier. All of a sudden his tires go flat. His call sign is boom, boom, because that's the sound that everyone heard when that happened.
Yeah.
There was a guy, John Sheehan. They called him Love Machine. There was a guy, whatever Seaman. His call sign was Spurt Seaman.
No, I love the culture of the call sign, that it's like, this collective agreement that we're all going to give each other a little bit of grief. And not only are they going to give you grief, now we're going to make a decal and stick it underneath your pride of your life, which is the cockpit, right?
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful. Well,
I have to share this. My younger brother is also a Navy pilot, and he flew C-130s. When he was getting out of the active duty and getting into the reserve squadron, he was trying to get into a squadron here in San Diego, and I knew probably 80% of the guys in the squadron. So I had called up and said, "Hey, my younger brother's coming in. I recommend him highly." Blah blah blah. Yeah. So he shows up the first day, and he's in the ready room, and one of my buddies is across the way and goes, "Hey, Paige, what's your call sign?" And he goes, "Pager." My buddy goes, "You're not Pager. Your brother's Pager. You're beeper." And supposedly my brother turned purple, and was pissed off. And it's like, if you get pissed off at a call sign, it's gonna stick.
Game over. Yeah, game over.
That's so
beautiful.
He was the beeper from then on.
Oh man, that's a hilarious one.
Yeah.
I love it. So looking at the actual films, especially the stuff with the Tomcat, which I know you're a lot more familiar with than some of the newer aircrafts.
Yeah.
How much of the things that they're doing are like absolutely possible, and how much things are like total movie magic?
Oh no, the F-18, the Super Hornet that was flying in Top Gun 2, everything that you saw the Super Hornet doing, it can do, and it wasn't showing a lot of maneuverability other than the squatting of the jet when it's doing its low level and then pops up. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it does coming in to deliver ordnance. You're probably talking more about the
Cobra
CGI.
maneuver. The Cobra maneuver that's a real thing.
That is a real thing. When you talk about vectored thrust on aircraft like the F-22, the Raptor, it can perform like that. And I've talked to and flown with guys in the airlines that were F-22 pilots, and they said it's mind blowing what aircraft can do in the air combat maneuver arena. So, CGI, but very capable for a lot of the 5th generation fighters that are out there today.
The other thing I have questions about is like when you see them doing these like low altitude passes, they're like in between mountain lines and tree lines and stuff like that. Especially when we're talking about the speeds they're moving at. I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but especially when you're talking low altitude, how on earth are they doing these maneuvers without just like burying this thing in the ground? Is there some sort of flight control to make sure that doesn't happen, or is it just that skill of a pilot?
It's the skill of the pilot. Having done a lot of low level flying myself, it's pretty exhilarating, especially the lower you go. I mean, things are just whizzing past the canopy. You have to be thinking well in front of the aircraft. You get comfortable with doing it, but you have to be really on top of it. And it's just one of those practice makes perfect. They normally the altitudes are higher because of we don't want people to fly into the ground.
Yeah.
So but as having not been to combat, I can only imagine when you are coming in a combat role and trying to terrain mask, stay out of the envelopes of anti missiles. You're going to want to be as low and as fast as you can go. So very realistic. And I was on the edge of my seat just like you were watching it.
So that brings me perfectly to this. What are the thoughts about this movie from the actual community? Like, I know, like, when I think about like firefighters, me being a firefighter, like we love backdraft, we love like the thing.
Sure.
But like we also like poke holes in the actual logic of some of the things. But like, what does the actual community feel about the movies?
It's interesting because, well, first of all, it was a great tool for the Navy. I mean, Tom Cruise, I guess, just got a medal. The Navy gave him a medal, the highest, civilian medal for his portrayal and what he did for the recruitment for people to join the Navy. The first movie, all the flying that was done by Top Gun instructors and F-14 guys from the fleet. And if you look at the credits, you'll see all these guys with their call signs. And I knew the majority of those guys, and they're all great pilots and great guys. The storyline a little hokey, but the flying was as good as it could get back in the 80s with how they filmed it.
I'm fascinated by the idea of is like quoting or referencing Top Gun lines and things like strictly prohibited at Top Gun school. Like, I imagine it being like Wayne's World, where they point to the sign and they're like, "No stairway to heaven." Like if you say like, "I got a need for speed," they're like, "Get out." I don't.
Yeah. People will probably say it tongue in cheek, and I've heard things. It used to be back in the day because Top Gun was overused so much that we would say just the T word. Instead of for instance, this is actually pretty funny. Right after I got to Miramar, Wednesday night's the big night at the O Club, and it would get packed. People, a lot of gals were coming in there to meet Top Gun guys. So I remember seeing one of my buddies from flight school early on in flight school. He was flying helicopters up Point Mugu, which is north of L.A. And I see him in the parking lot, and he's got a pair of shorts on, but he's putting his flight suit on. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he goes, "Hey man, it's Wednesday. Like shooting fish in a barrel. I'm here to meet some gals." Yeah. And later on that night, I heard some young thing go, "Are you Top Gun?" And he's like, "Yes, I am."
Yeah.
So anyway,
stolen valor is probably a terrible problem in the Top Gun community.
Right.
So as we kind of wrap, first off, super thank you for this thing. But I want to finish with this. Again, this is really the thing that, drives my love of Top Gun. Huh? But it is, what is it about fighter jets that's just so damn American? Like, what is it about like the Top Gun movie, just fighter jets in general, that just like, it's like an eagle in front of a flag with fireworks. It's just beautiful. I don't know what it is, but
question. Of course, visually, F-14 was the sexiest looking airplane. I mean, just looking at it parked with its wings swept, just a gorgeous airplane. And getting to, see the performance level of that airplane on the screen really, I think, resonated with people that has never gotten a chance to be there. But I go back. I'll never forget my last time on the carrier. I'm taking off for the last time, and I know it might be my last time ever on an aircraft carrier. And from my vantage point, I'm looking around on the carrier flight deck, which is number one, the most dangerous environment one can ever imagine. There's jets moving. I mean, people can get sucked into intakes, and there's just hundreds of people with all their responsibilities, and they're all 18, 19 years old. This is one of those things that people probably have never been put in an environment where you give so much responsibility to such a young group of kids, and they're selfless. They're doing it because they're on the team. And I made it my mission when I was not flying to interact with these kids, walk up, say hi, ask how their day's doing, because they're working 12 hours on, 12 hours off. I mean, here it is. Their whole goal and reason for being is to make sure we get off the deck safely and go do our mission. Without them, we are not there. We can't fly. So I always made it a point to tell them how much I appreciated their hard work. And it's one of those things where the pilots get so much of the credit when it should be, no, we need to, these maintainers, the guys that worked on the jets, the crash crew, crash, fire, and rescue. Those are the guys that are jumping in. If something happens on deck, they're jumping into a fireball to unstrap me to get me out of the airplane without questioning it. The fuelers, the handlers, everybody had a great role to play, and they did such a phenomenal job. I can't thank them enough for what they did. And I think mix all that in with just seeing F-14s do supersonic flybys and maneuver like they do. It just is a great team to be a part of. And I was very thankful for that.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm super appreciative of the opportunity to talk to you and pick your brain, learn some stuff about this, this field that I love so much and I have no exposure to. I'm super appreciative. Thank you for your service to this country. And then just thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you.
All right, Jake, thanks very much. It was great talking to you.